Hi, everybody. There's some 26 of you in the webinar, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer as we had over 50 participants sign up. So just hang on a little bit longer as everybody moves in. Hi, Mary. I hope it's nice and sunny up in Pennsylvania. It is here in Florida. Oh, good. It's beautiful up in Pennsylvania as it happens. And it looks like most of you are signed in from computers. I don't see, or other devices. I don't see many phone callers, so that's helpful. Oh, thanks, Cindy, for letting us know you're on your phone. But if you can see the screen, I'll be sharing some slides. But if you can't see the slides in this session, we'll send them out to you all via email. All right, so we've hit the magic 40 mark. So I'm going to declare this a quorum for those of us who are here and get started. Thank you for joining us at the second webinar at the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund in 2020. The first one was on digital, on communications, digital and otherwise. And this is really a follow-up from the communications webinar, which is now, what about fundraising digitally? And this builds off of a presentation that I did for the Nonprofit Center here in Jacksonville. So apologies to those of you who may have seen that, but I will speed through that presentation at a fairly fast clip, because what I would really like to do is consider this an Ask Me Anything session. I don't know if any of you have joined Ask Me Anything sessions on Reddit, but that's where you get everyone online gets to ask questions, and the host does their best to answer all of them in the time allotted. So we'll try to make sure that there's a lot of time for questions. Please be prepared to ask questions. The way I would like to ask you to ask those questions is if you are on a smart device, you will see at the bottom of the screen, on my screen, it shows up a little bit towards the right-hand bottom side. It says Q&A. Click on that icon, type in your question, and you should be able to see all the questions that other people have asked. And if we want to get fancy, we could even ask you to upvote them. So, and some of you have already discovered the chat. That's just a way to communicate with everyone on the webinar. But for the Q&A, please put them in the Q&A box, because it'll help make it possible for us to keep track of what was answered and what was not. And with that, I am going to share my screen. All right. Let's see, here we go. Intro to digital fundraising. I'm hoping that everyone can see their screens now. And a slide. All right. So, intro to digital fundraising. And however, before I get actually started with the presentation, I'm going to do a very quick poll. If you can see your screen, it should be asking you, is your organization active on social media? If so, which platforms? And there it goes. 34% voting, 40% voting. %60 voted. Moving up there. Wow, so far, nobody is not active on social media. That's great. But it does mean that perhaps we should make sure that that it's less of an intro and more of an intermediate course on digital fundraising. 90% voting. %92 voted. Maybe I'll leave it here so that we can keep moving. I will end the poll and I will share. So if you can see the results, 92% of you are active on social media on Facebook. 68% of you are on Twitter. 5% of you are on TikTok. 68% of you are on Instagram, and another 5% on Snapchat. Now, this is not mutually exclusive because we allowed you to pick more than one choice, but this is very helpful. So I'm going to stop sharing the poll results right now and launch into the presentation. And so I asked you the question about social media because social media presence and identity is a must-have for digital fundraising. Yes, you can send out emails asking for donations, and that does sort of count as digital fundraising. But in this day and age, relying just on email to get through to your donors is probably leaving money on the table. So now, I know many of you, in fact, are already on social media, so that sounds great. And I'm going to quickly go over the next couple of slides, which was designed to give any of you who might have answered that you weren't active on social media the reassurance that it's not rocket science. On the left-hand side, you see a post from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Not necessarily someone you consider, being a social media star, but this little post sharing one of the mounted policeman's horses, and Breed Percheron likes socializing with other horses, dislikes getting his hooves trimmed. You get the picture. It's an incredibly cute little post about the sheriff's office. And for those of you, for the hardcore aficionados, Steak-umm is one of the really serious viral social media stars. Frozen meat product, but incredibly popular. You too can be like Steak-umm. Another example of someone who has just become a breakout social media star, the National Cowboy Museum. When they went into lockdown, the only person who could be in the museum was the head of security, Tim. And here's Tim's first post. Hi, my name is Tim, and I'm the head of security for the Cowboy Museum. He's taking on the additional duty of social media management. You will see there, he's already got 54,000 likes as Tim, the head of security for the Cowboy Museum. And I don't know if you can see the post to the far right. Someone suggested I post a TikTok. It's very cute. He takes a picture of a clock in the museum's collections, and says, this is TikTok. And you can see also here, his grandson told me to use hashtags, and he's decided to call it hashtag Mark, hashtag the cowboy. Hashtag the cowboy is something now you can track and see what's going on. It is incredibly distinctive. And as you can see, he got 26,000 likes for that. So again, all possible. A one-man viral media hit. Just to diversify the social media examples from Twitter, here are a bunch of Instagram feeds. This is a nonprofit that trains these African rats to go and detonate or sniff out, not detonate, landmines in all over the world. Here they are reminding you that Giving Tuesday now is tomorrow. Here's an example of someone who is not a specialist on nonprofit social media, but clearly an Instagram star. Look at her beautiful layout of blues and teals. Margot Pepper, the blue period. Since y'all have been liking and sharing my shots, I'm donating $1 for every share and every 100 likes on this post to Chicago's Food Depository for Giving Tuesday Now. And there on the far right is a Giving Tuesday Now post, a beautiful little coronavirus dependent post where you're divided by a glass wall, but united in love. So just another example of the kind of posts that work. So back to the subject of fundraising. Fundraising, this was a meme that went around, what my mom thinks I do, what my friends think I do, what I think I do, or what my boss thinks I do and what I really do. This is sort of the life of a fundraiser for a nonprofit. Your friends think you're panhandling. Your mom thinks you go around in first class sipping champagne. What you really do is lick envelopes. So, but in that vein, I just wanted to share with you the results of a survey from the Better Business Bureau's Wise Giving Alliance. They did a survey of both nonprofits and donors, and here is what nonprofits expect in 2020. 76% of charities anticipate donors will be less able to give. They all believe, the majority of them believe they'll have to cancel their fundraising events. And 44%, like almost 1 in 2 of you, believe that your donors will redirect their giving towards support for individuals in need. And that includes people who are, I'm sure you have received emails from restaurants saying, we had to furlough our workers, please contribute to our workers fund. And this is all on platforms like GoFundMe. However, what donors expect in 2020 is that 1/3 of donors expect to give more to charities in 2020, of which 48% of them are millennials. 61% of them are Gen Z. So we're talking about a lot of people who expect to be giving more. Granted, they're on the younger cohort, so they may not be giving as much, but more than half of the donors polled said they plan to keep their annual giving levels up. So this means you must, if you haven't gotten seriously engaged in digital funding, this is a year to get engaged. And I'm going to give you a 7-step process for how to get engaged in digital fundraising. Full disclosure, I co-founded and ran a crowdfunding platform from 2001 and 2018. So the instructions I'm going to give you are straight from Global Giving's playbook. However, the instructions will work on any platform, I guarantee it. If you want to take a look at the actual handbook, you can just go to Google, Crowd Fundamentals. You won't need to take notes. It's all in there. Step 1. Actually, I'll give you all the 7 steps. Set a goal. Compare platforms. Craft a strong story. Create a network map. Develop social media appropriate messages. and brainstorm some creative fundraising ideas. And make sure before you get started, you've got a plan for donor appreciation. So step 1, setting goals. For every digital fundraising campaign, describe exactly what you want to achieve. How many people do you want to give? How much money? In what time frame? And make it realistic. So these are SMART goals. You've probably heard business management people talk about SMART goals. It's an acronym based on specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Set a goal. Whatever goal works for you at whatever stage you are in. If you're just starting out, set a modest goal. If you've been doing this for quite some time, which it's possible with many of you that you're so active on social media, you should be setting fairly large goals. Then go out and compare nonprofit platforms. You may already have accounts on some of these platforms. I happen to pick the nonprofit platforms for you all to look at. The for-profit platforms are there on the bottom: GoFundMe, Fundly, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Causes. There's a new one coming up every minute. So research them, decide which ones are for you. Most of them do not charge an upfront fee. And if they do, they're modest. So the barrier to entry should be fairly low. But you should decide on the platform that makes sense for you and start out there. Don't spread yourself thin across many platforms, because what happens in social media giving campaigns is that you sort of want to show momentum and you want to concentrate that momentum on one platform to begin with. So once you have compared your platforms, those are the funding platforms. Now I'm back to talking about social media platforms. And this is where you need to pick, which social media platforms are you going to start with or focus on? You could do Facebook. It has a donate button, so it too is a crowdfunding platform. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, they all have very different demographics. I urge you to go to one of these social media demographic websites. SproutSocial is one of them. We can share some of those URLs later, but look at, you may have an existing donor base that you've got emails and cell phone, mobile phone numbers for. That's great. Is that the audience you want to grow, or do you want to grow a different audience? If you want to grow a different audience, you need to research what the demographics are of the people you want to reach. Say you want to reach Gen Z people. You probably aren't going to go to Facebook or even Twitter. You're probably going to go to TikTok, Instagram maybe. But those are the kind of choices you're going to have to make. And this is not specific to a digital platform. This is something that you all probably have been doing ever since you started thinking about marketing. You need to make sure you're going to where your donors are. Just a quick digression on Facebook Donate, because it is a platform that not only is free, but is in fact not charging credit card fees at the moment. So for nonprofits, donations that you get through Facebook will not be charged the credit card fees. Almost every other platform will charge credit card fees, which is to say they will take it out of the donation that you receive. So it's a two-stage process. You'll need to verify your nonprofit status. And there are 3 things you need. You need some bank statements, you need the name and date of birth of your CEO, and your tax ID number, your EIN. You go to the URL at the bottom, facebook.com/donate/signup. You'll get a chance to verify your nonprofit status, after which it'll take maybe up to 2 weeks to get your approval. You'll be able to add the button, go onto your nonprofit Facebook page, sign in as an admin, add a button, you get to donate. And it'll be live right then and there. So that's a very easy thing for you all to do. If you haven't done it, recommend you do it. Then you need to make sure that your stories are personal and sticky. And the one thing I can tell you about stories, and I have spent a lot of time researching what stories stick, and it's all personal. Remember Tim, the security guard at the Cowboy Museum? That social media feed from the Cowboy Museum is powerful because it's indelibly associated with Tim, the security guard. Make sure that your stories in one fashion or another are tied back to a person. Ideally, a person whose face you can show, ideally, a person whose story and voice you can showcase. And as nonprofits, you have amazing stories. I've no doubt that you can figure this out and you'll knock it out of the ballpark. Then you need to do a network mapping. You need to start with you, the fundraiser, your co-workers first and foremost. You need to leverage everyone in the organization. You got to go and get your family, your friends, your acquaintances, because social media marketing, digital fundraising is all about reaching out to your immediate circle and getting them to reach out to their circles. Now, what makes someone in your family or your friend circle share? Well, there are two things. One is the content is compelling. Check that. Two is there's a deadline. There is a reason to do it now and not later. And this is where you need to make sure that you have a hook. And tomorrow is Giving Social. I'm going to skip forward to Giving Tuesday now, May 5. Now, just a little note about how this came about. Many of you probably know that there is a day in the year dedicated to giving digitally. It's the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and it came about because a group of us, including me when I was at Global Giving, said, okay, so there's Thanksgiving. Everyone's feeling warm and fuzzy about love, giving, gratitude, followed by Black Friday, where everyone is lining up outside the doors of a superstore at midnight waiting to get in, which is slightly insane, but so be it. Black Friday, right? And that was the real world. And then the cyber guys decided, oh, it's going to be Cyber Monday. So they took over Monday. And that's when the nonprofit folks that are now Giving Tuesdays, incubated at the 92nd Street Y up in New York, said, okay, we're going to claim Tuesday. So Giving Tuesday is the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Now, in the midst of this pandemic, they all decided, you know what? We need a Giving Tuesday now. And they picked May 5th, which is tomorrow. And here you see some examples of people making sure that Giving Tuesday is visible on their supporters' social media feeds. And there's Covenant House, Florida. There's an organization in Georgia. And you'll see that in this case, Georgia has mounted a campaign as a state, as a network of organizations, focused on mental health. They've started trying to leverage Georgians' pride in being from Georgia. And so they're trying to make sure that everybody in Georgia is aware of Giving Tuesday now. And here you see at the bottom here, Bill Truix. He's not an American Association staff person, but he's someone who clearly supports him. And here he is pushing the message about Giving Tuesday now from his own personal account. Now I'm going to go back and talk about getting creative. This is the place, social media is the place to get creative, and make sure you tailor your collateral, whether it's text, whether it's a photo, whether it's a little piece of video, to the medium. I didn't mention YouTube, but obviously YouTube is a place where you can also have a huge presence. This is the Magnet Fine Arts School here in Jacksonville. It's called Douglas Anderson. and apologies, just touched the touchpad there. The magnet school put together a little coronavirus video with their kids, each in their homes, singing and dancing from their homes, collaged together in this little video here. That's an amazing piece of collateral. It's a little bit long, 6 minutes is long on social media. TikTok is frequently much, much, much shorter than that. And you just sort of capture the best shot and the most winning moves, and it has the potential to go viral. But social media is a place for you to try stuff out. If it bombs, what it means is that it doesn't get retweeted. And so by definition, it won't get seen by a lot of people. That's fine. There's very little risk unless you do something offensive, which gets you the other kind of notoriety. But short of doing anything offensive, it's not a place where you can't get easily forgiven. Things that you tried out that don't work, they just won't be visible. So it's not a big deal. Get creative. Finally, I'm going to just remind you again that you need to have a donor appreciation plan. Figure out how you're going to appreciate your donors. If you hook it to an event, say Giving Tuesday Now, or another great holiday is Mother's Day. If you're a nonprofit where you have a lot of donors who are women, you may be able to leverage that space and say, Mother's Day is coming up. Make sure you make a donation in your mother's name for Mother's Day. Now, that's an event, May 10th, right? You got to get it done by May 10th. People make those donations. It's a way to make sure that there's a reason to share that email, a reason to share that post, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok. Once you've done that, make sure you have a plan to send emails, handwritten note, personal video, or just responding on the medium. If someone shares your post, thank them, follow them. Do anything that makes them feel like, oh, I did something good and someone loves me for it. It doesn't take much. And mention your donors' generosity in social media, tag your donors, make them feel great, and see if you can identify the kind of people who will turn into real fans and who will do fundraisers on your behalf virtually. There are lots of people active in the gaming community, in Twitch, who will say, hey, if I can get 10,000 viewers of this video, I will make a donation to the Salvation Army. You can leverage people where they are and where they have influence. This is the amazing thing about digital fundraising. You wouldn't think that you can catch the attention of someone who is a big gamer, because you don't have a lot of gamers in your real life donor base. But you find a way to catch their attention, they might be induced to start pushing it out to their audience. So I'm going to stop here and switch to let you all ask questions. Remember, Giving Tuesday this year is December 1, 2020. And at the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, we're thinking about putting together a structured course for those of you who might be interested in getting ready for Giving Tuesday. We'd probably start about 6 weeks ahead of time and start doing the goal setting exercise together. We'll probably also think about providing matching funds for the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund grantees, and really get creative and make this a Giving Tuesday for y'all to remember. So with that little commercial, I am going to switch to the Ask Me Anything phase. And I think I might stop sharing the slides here. I have a couple of colleagues online who will be helping me manage the questions and other uh, other things you have. Barbara, you mentioned LinkedIn. Yes, I did not mention LinkedIn because LinkedIn is a great medium to increase your visibility among influencers and people in your sector, but it is not that helpful when it comes to finding and reaching donors.
Hi, Mari, this is Melanie. We have our first question from Cecilia. She asked, do we have to register to be able to use the Giving Tuesday Now hashtag?
Oh, not at all. That's a great question. No, Giving Tuesday is totally what in the industry you might call open source, which is to say, you find it useful, you can go ahead and start using it, and you will not have to register for Giving Tuesday itself. When we, if you all have any interest, and this is a question of if you are interested, we'll be prepared to put something together. But if there is a cohort of nonprofits out there in the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund portfolio who are interested in participating in a learning module right up to Giving Tuesday to help you launch a campaign, we'll walk through all of these things. But Giving Tuesday Now, the hashtag, is absolutely open to anybody to use.
We also got some questions ahead of our webinar. One of them is, what are some common mistakes that nonprofits make as they engage in digital fundraising?
The most common mistake, and I will cop to it myself. So as I mentioned, I founded and ran a digital fundraising platform called Global Giving, right? And over the years, it's raised over $450 million. It's reached organizations in 170 different countries. We just, went over 1 million donors. Sounds great, right? Back in 2002, which is when we first put out a website, I don't know what it was we were thinking, but what is it? Shoeless Joe, the Field of Dreams movie? Build it and they will come. That's what we thought. We thought, build a website. Donors will come. Not the case. Donors don't know you exist. A website, a social media presence, they don't know you exist until you start gaining traction and getting followers. And once you get followers and they start reposting your social media tweets and their followers like what you provided, that's when you start getting more donors. That's when you can start really leveraging your platform. So the most common mistake I have seen people make in the social media space is assuming that you just put content out there and magic happens. Nope. You have to actually start out with identifying your core audience, getting them to follow you, getting them to repost, and really leveraging. And you can also do other things. You can start following other people, other nonprofits that do a really great job of social media. You retweet their stuff, you start following them, they might follow you, they might retweet your stuff. So it's all a kind of informal give and take, but you don't build it and they come. You have to actually build out your audience.
Great. We have another question from Robert at the Salvation Army. He asks, what are your thoughts on combining our existing match campaign along with our Giving Tuesday Now efforts? Is that too much?
That's a judgment call. I think it depends on, a match is either there to mobilize your existing donors, give them a reason to give and give now, right? Because usually matches are time bound. Or it's a way to bring in new donors. Now, and it can be both, obviously, right? Doesn't mean that you have to exclusively do one or the other. But I think if you're trying to reach new donors, the Giving Tuesday Now is one of these things where you can kind of get visibility because everyone is out there talking and retweeting and reposting giving. And they're in the mood. So if you have a really compelling post that you can put up there that's really funny and quirky and cute, you know, you're coming from the Salvation Army, you have quite a bit of name recognition. So it's not like someone's talking about, you know, an obscure nonprofit that they've never heard of. So they'll recognize Salvation Army. They'll know that it's a reputable organization. And if it's funny and cute and heartwarming and gets passed around because of the Giving Tuesday Now hashtag, you may have an opportunity to attract new donors. And, you know, this is where the match can really help, right? New donors are kind of on the fence. It's like one more push to say, give now, and your donation will be matched. So it's a judgment call, but it may be worth experimenting with. Again, you know, if it doesn't appeal to the new donors, so you don't get the new donors, but you still get your old donors because they're still motivated by the idea that there's a match out there where they can increase their impact.
Great. We have another question from Cecilia, which is about specific platforms. She says, my organization is present on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I usually post the same things in each platform, even though I know they have each a specific audience. I'm not really sure how to make these posts different to fit the audiences better. Do you have any tips or documents you can share?
So I don't have a document I can share, but you know, Instagram, you mentioned Instagram, is a very visual platform. I mean, if you recall the slide I shared, here it is, from Instagram, look at how pretty those colors are, right? And look at how cute those two people are smiling and doing the little heart symbol. Even the Hero Rats one, it's visually appealing. Make sure if you're posting stuff to Instagram that it's visually appealing. The app is designed to maximize the photo. The text is kind of afterthought. Whereas on Facebook, and Twitter both, Facebook is kind of a hybrid actually. On Twitter, it really is about the text. I mean, yes, you can see the photos on TweetDeck and inside Twitter, but honestly, it's a text-based platform. And even though they increase the number of characters on it, Twitter rewards brevity, right? It's not designed to show you a lot of text at any given time, even though they've lengthened the number of characters. Facebook, you can write a lot longer. If you want, you can write a whole essay on Facebook. So optimizing your posts to the social media platform. Now you can make sure every post on Twitter, it has a beautiful photo so that you can share it on Instagram. But you might have stuff that you could share on Twitter easily through 140 characters or double that now, I guess, that you can't on Instagram. So I would recommend that you think through what your strategy is. And Twitter is also one that rewards a lot of conversation. So you get engaged in back and forth with the people who engage with you on Twitter. I mean, do not let a response to your tweet go unliked or unanswered. One or the other, preferably both. And on Instagram, it's much more about the likes, right? It's such a visual platform. It's all about the likes. There are some people who comment, and it is important to respond to those as well. The one thing I have to remind you is social media is not a broadcast medium, it's an interactive medium. And so people expect, give, and call and response. If you don't do that, then you'll find that your donors and your supporters don't engage with you as much as you might expect them to.
We have another question that came in before the webinar. If we don't have a sophisticated website and someone devoted to donor relations strategy, is it even worth trying to fundraise online?
You don't have to have a sophisticated web strategy if you have a robust social media strategy. If people engage with you via social media and you have a decent donate now page where you've been telling the story of all the people who've been helped, and you've done a really great job outlining how your organization is achieving impact, and you say, today is Giving Tuesday now, give and support this great work. The odds are they're going to be doing it on these devices, right? They're not looking for a perfect website with beautiful graphics. They're going to be looking for a donation button that works, takes their credit card information quickly and efficiently. If you have PayPal or something, again, have it integrate with as many existing platforms as possible. There's Amazon Pay, there's PayPal, there's Apple Pay. Make it frictionless, and that will be worth much more than making sure that you have a beautiful website, which takes a lot of work and a lot of time. So that is, I think, the thing you want to do. You can develop a social media strategy without having a very sophisticated website.
Thank you. We got another one specific to Facebook from Robert at the Salvation Army. Can you please explain why Facebook is pushing the Learn More button and not the Donate Now button? Is it more difficult to get the Donate Now button? It's very confusing.
As far as I know, it should not be difficult to get the Donate Now button if you have it already. I would imagine the Salvation Army already has a Facebook Donate Now button. And so what you're saying, you already have the Donate Now button, and it is it's being superseded by the Learn Now button. Is that what's happening to you all?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I just unmuted, talking permitted. But anyway, Robert, if you don't want to talk, that's fine. It is true that as a nonprofit page, there is always the option to learn more on a nonprofit page. And it may be that for those of you who don't have a Donate Now button, that's the only thing that shows up. I can try to find out more if you already have a Donate Now button, why your Learn Now button is coming up.
So
there are a bunch of algorithms.
We do not have a Donate Now on our Facebook page, and we're trying to get it on all of our Facebook pages in the 5 county area, and we're being told that we can only get the Learn More button. Is my understanding.
You all have different EIN numbers in
Nope.
each county?
Nope, the same.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, let's take this one offline. I can try and find out what I hear.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Mari, along the same lines, talking about Facebook Donate, we got a question from Mary asking if you have a website with an online donation form, I assume you redirect to that page back to your website versus using the Facebook Donate Now.
Yes, I think so. So here's a calculation I will be making. Let's say you send out an email or you have a successful social media post that impels people to donate now, and they click. if you make it go to the Facebook donate button, which does give you the advantage of not having to pay the credit card fees, but it is just like max 3%. So it's not a huge amount. You potentially are creating friction for that donor because one, they may not have a Facebook account, or two, they will have to log into their Facebook in order to get to that donate now button. So odds are I would redirect them to a simple, efficient donate now link that works really well on your web page. Now, if your web page, however, is not simple, requires people to fill in all sorts of information, like their addresses and all these other things when you're processing the payment, then every single step, every single page is a potential to lose your donor. So just remember that when you design your websites and your web pages. There's a trade-off between security and ease. It used to be, of course, that nobody did any credit card processing without, addresses, CCV codes, and everything. Nowadays, people are happy to take your money if you provide zip code and the CCV code. Skip the addresses entirely. From a customer relationship management point of view, you may want to know what their physical addresses are because one day you may want to send them snail mail. But it is probably more important to get them in the door than to sort of create friction when they have already made up their minds to give money to you and you're just making it harder for them to do so. So assuming your website is working well, yes, redirect them to your website. If not, it may be a toss-up as to whether it's better to direct them to the Facebook donate now. Again, depends on demographic. If you're targeting people who are, sort of Gen X and up, Facebook is not a bad bet. A lot of them are on Facebook and are very active on Facebook. So they probably are logged in. Not going to be very difficult to get them. If you're targeting a young audience, maybe not so much. If you're targeting a lot older, maybe not so much either.
Thanks, Mari. From a messaging perspective, we've talked a lot about how posts get a lot of traction if they're funny or cute or snappy. What would you recommend for an organization whose work does not fall into the funny, cute, or snappy realm, if it's not, work that people can find humor in? How do they tell their stories effectively?
Sure. Human trafficking, violence against women. Those aren't funny topics. They're usually not cute. They're certainly, heartbreaking at times. I think but however, let's take like violence against women, right? You talk about violence for women, but there are survivors. There are women who have gotten out of abusive and violent situations with their kids and created lives that they can be proud of mostly for their kids, right? You can talk about her, and you can talk about her on May 10th, on the lead up to May 10th, as a hero for Mother's Day, right? You can, the most awful subjects, whether it's the mistreatment of the Rohingya in Myanmar, there are heroes, there are survivors, and there are people that you can feel proud of knowing. Elevate their stories, link it to something like Mother's Day, right? That we all can relate to. And you can, if not funny or cute, you can get heartfelt, which is just as good. There was a nonprofit on Global Giving that worked in India, I think, making menstrual pads for young women, because one of the sad things that happens in the developing world is as girls reach puberty, they stop going to school. And they stop going to school not because anyone tells them they shouldn't go to school, but because of the lack of hygiene products. They're embarrassed about going to school. And they don't have, clean bathrooms. They don't have bathrooms. That's when they quit going to school. So access to, menstrual hygiene products are critical to keeping girls in school. Not a happy topic. It's embarrassing as heck. Difficult to talk about in some contexts because, I've got a 12-year-old boy here at home. If I started talking about that here, he'd just like die and, crumple up, right? But when Apple introduced their iPad, we were able to put together a social media campaign that went somewhat viral about, well, we're all talking about the new iPad, but what about menstrual pads? Did you know that girls in India can't stop going to school when they turn 12 and have their first period because they can't have access to, clean bathrooms and reasonable hygiene? So there are ways of, as it were, destigmatizing, defusing topics that can be charged by finding clever ways to hook it to things. So I think pretty much any subject can be tackled.
Thank you. We have about 8 minutes left. We'll do a call for last questions. And while we give people a few minutes to think through whether they have any last questions, we had one more that came in beforehand. If an organization has limited time and resources, what one thing would you recommend they do to kickstart or bump up their online fundraising? You gave us 7 steps. Is there one that's most important?
Of the 7, the one thing that you can use, even if all you have is an email list, is a compelling story. So come up with a compelling story. Ideally, one that can be shared, not just once, and don't put it all in one. I mean, Charles Dickens wrote his novels in installments, and they were like published in magazines and newspapers. And, just like TV shows, leave you on a cliffhanger and tune into the next episode, right? This is a tried and true tactic of storytellers. Come up with a compelling story, see if you can share it over time in little bits, in digestible bits, where people can, sort of absorb it in one screen. And remember, their screens are increasingly smaller. It's like this size screen. And feel good about looking forward to the next installment. Focus on this story because you can use it even in email. And once you do have social media presence, your muscle memory in terms of getting your story telling together will be activated, and you'll be well set. You'll have done a little bit of limbering up for when you are ready to launch a social media presence.
Great. We have one more question from Cindy. She said, where would you start to reach a younger demographic? We say our parish is older, but that is just who we are currently reaching.
Well, starting with, the Gen Xers and up are on Facebook. So if you want to reach Gen X, you can get them through Facebook. If you want to reach cohort that's a little younger, go for Instagram. If you want to go even younger than that, go to TikTok. TikTok's a little tougher because these are tiny little, they can be longer, but many of them are sort of GIF size little videos. So it's kinetic, and you have to convey your message quickly. But young people manage to do that. So recruit a person of the age that you want to reach. Get them to be themselves, their authentic selves, on that social media platform. Internalize your messages and see if you can get them to help you get your message out on that medium. Again, I'm happy to share, different websites that tell you the specific demographics, whether it skews male, whether it skews female, and all of these other things in a separate email or post. But do that, figure out where your demographic resides, then go and recruit a volunteer, ideally, from one of those cohorts, and get them to help you begin to script what your presence and identity is on social media.
Thank you. I think those are all of our questions.
All right. And we had a lot of people stay on, so I really appreciate it. We will be asking you whether you would like us to put on a structured kind of learning journey for you all for Giving Tuesday, the real Giving Tuesday on December 1. So let us know if you have any interest in that, and we will keep you posted. Thank you very much.